Welcome to the Evolve Beyond Limits podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Gissal. This podcast is dedicated to helping you create a life that sets your soul on fire. I believe that is truly possible for everybody, but you have to be willing to do a few things. You have to be willing to let go of your past conditioning. You have to be willing to break free from societal norms. And you have to be willing to get really curious about your life and how you can start to look at it differently. Each week, we will hear stories from people who have done exactly this. People who chose to disrupt the life path they were on, go against the grain, and share the lessons and perspective shifts they had to make along the way. Every episode is committed to not only inspiring you and connecting you with other amazing humans, but actually giving you the tools you need to use this information in your own life so that you continue to evolve and reconnect with your highest self. Are you ready? Let's have some fun. I want to welcome you to this week's episode of the Evolve Beyond Limits podcast, where we are talking with Stephanie Gilstrap. She is a virtual stylist that really gives leaders, entrepreneurs, and unstoppable go-getters the tools to lock in their personal style and leverage their outfits to draw out their inner badass. You're going to see and hear about how she has changed my life in this department, but you're also going to understand that we talked a lot about how clothing and style is truly a reflection of what's going on within us. And so in this episode, she shares a lot about how she discovered and tapped into her own gifts to start her business and the way that her confidence journey has shaped her life, plus so many other amazing topics. I know that you're going to take a ton from this episode. So let's just dive right in and make sure you stick around for the post show at the end, where I'll just give a couple little nuggets on how you can take the lessons that were learned from this episode and apply them to your own life. Let's get started. To get to know you better too. So how are you today?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me, Stacy. This is such a treat being here.
No, I love it. And every time that Stephanie and I get to jam out together, we have a blast. So I'm excited to have the listeners as part of this conversation. So I always like to start with just a few questions so that the listeners can get to know you a little bit better. And as they will, because that's kind of the whole point of this podcast, but we'll ask a few questions to begin with. So we'll start with, where are you from originally and where are you living now?
Yes. So I am originally from Oregon. I lived there my entire life, Bend, Oregon specifically. I lived there all up until like just under a year ago, and our whole family just up and moved to Chandler, Arizona, which we are just absolutely loving it.
Oh my gosh. What a interesting move. Cause I'm pretty sure, and I don't even know what the word is. So I'm not going to say, but, like Oregon is pretty it's beautiful, but it also, there's a lot of like gloominess and like, is that Oregon?
Yeah. There's a lot of different climates. Like I think most people know of it as being really rainy, kind of like in that Portland area. We did live in Central Oregon, which was actually a desert, but we lived like 20 minutes from like a mountain. And so it would snow really heavily in the winter. We did get a lot of sunshine most of the year where I was, but we were ready for the heat in the pool, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, I do know what you're saying. Oh my gosh. I was in, and it's funny because living in Michigan, you guys have in Arizona, you have like this very different, like we live for the summer and you guys like live for the winter. I remember last year I was in Arizona, I was in Scottsdale in July, and I was walking to a coffee shop. And I literally had 3 people stop me on the way and ask me if I was okay, because it was like 110 degrees. they're like, people don't walk outside on purpose in Arizona at this time.
You must be lost.
Yeah, clearly you're lost. Oh my gosh, so funny. Okay, what about your family, like spouse, kids, pets, anything we should know about in that realm?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So my husband, Matt, and I, we have been married now, what is it going to be? 14 years this summer. So that's been quite the journey, as I'm sure you can imagine and I'm sure relate to. And then we have our 2 sons. Our older son is Jaden. He is 15. And our younger son, Tegan, is 6. Very, very different children. And then we have our dog, Bailey, who is an Australian Labradoodle.
Oh my goodness. I love it. And if you follow Stephanie on Instagram, you get to see, you can tell, yeah, two different children, but pretty far apart actually. So it kind of
Yeah.
kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Almost 10
That's
years. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And everybody's always like, same dad? And I'm like, yeah, actually. Same dad. So
same
funny.
dad, but just decided to wait a while.
Yeah. First the first one came a little too early, so we had to like get our feet under us. So
Oh, I love that. I always joke like, people always say like, "Well, what's your 5-year plan?" And I'm like, "Oh gosh, I don't have one because those never work out."
yeah. Oh my gosh, totally. How can we even have any clue what direction we're gonna be heading in 5 years? I don't know.
I know. I know. We used to be so naive, right?
I
Right?
know.
Like now I'm like, "Well, what am I doing in 5 minutes?" I'm not
I
really
know.
sure. I love
Seriously.
it.
That's so true.
All right, what is your favorite place to travel?
Oh man, you know what? I've been actually a lot of places in the US and a lot of places in Mexico, and those are the only places I have been in the entire world. I can't wait to expand that, of course, and I'm sure I'll be able to add to my list of amazing places. But definitely, we absolutely love the Cancun area over on that Caribbean side of Mexico. This past Christmas, we went to the island off of Cancun called Isla Mujeres, which was absolutely insane, like one of the top beaches in the whole world. And like that was just like a dream. And we actually just booked this next Christmas to go back. So we love it there.
Oh, I love that you do that. We spent last Thanksgiving in Cabo and then over in Cancun. So we spent like 2.5 weeks in Mexico, kind of on accident. But it was amazing. We actually had our honeymoon almost 12 years ago in Playa Mujeres, which is the
Yeah.
little city right as you go. And I love that you do that. I'm sure it's not easy for people to make the choice to like actually let's like talk about this for a second because talk about going against societal norms.
Yeah.
I hate tradition. Okay, people are going to be like, "What?" I think that tradition takes away the excitement in life. I think people do things just because they think they have to or they should or it's always been done that way, and it leaves very little room for like new experiences. So, how did you make the choice to go spend Christmas of all things in Mexico?
Yeah. So I think every Christmas, especially like lately as we've gotten older and we've like grown, developmentally in our lives, we started feeling a little bit unfulfilled on Christmas. It started feeling very monotonous. It started feeling like we were, buying things for our kids that they didn't really need. Just out of like the pressures of tradition, right? And like that we thought that our kids expected it and all these things. And we just finally were like, you know what? Some of the best experiences that we've had in our lives, like as adults, my husband and I has been traveling. So we're like, why don't we, bring that experience to our kids? And there's no better time to do it than the holidays because it's like if we're going to be spending a lot of money anyway, let's more so put it into an experience. And honestly, our older son is a freshman in high school, and we had him so young that there were many years where we didn't get to do anything very exciting with him, or be it we didn't couldn't afford creating experiences for him. So now we're almost kind of feeling the pressure of the time clock a little bit of like, oh my gosh, like he only has a few more years left with us. So let's really like focus on creating those memories. So
Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that because I think that it is hard to make those choices, especially when there's just a lot of expectations that we place on ourselves, but then other people place on us. And so I think that in investing into experiences, like everybody is so different and do you, but like if from my experience as well, is that those are the moments that you remember. And there's actually some science behind this. So when you like if you were to ask somebody like, do you want a $15,000 car or you say, do you want a $15,000 experience? People are going to instantly be like, well, I want the car because I get to keep the car for longer. I get to do all of these things. But the reality is, people would actually be happier and more fulfilled if they chose the experience, because not the car is going to get old. Like, we get over
Mhm.
it. We
Yep.
we get over material things very quickly. But with experiences, like, we not only get the excitement of looking forward to it, right? So it
Mhm.
expands that. So we're like super excited. You get to all the memories that come with it. And afterwards, you always get to look back and you carry those things with you forever. Like, they're things you don't forget. And I remember my mom and dad took us on a cruise when we were like 16 and 19, I want to say.
Yeah.
And we still laugh to this day about the stuff that happened. So I just think that's so
Yeah.
cool.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah. And then I'll also add, when I was a kid, we did not do anything. Like, my parents couldn't afford to take us on trips. It was not like, we just didn't have that. And I remember always feeling so stuck as a kid, like, man, I wish that we could go do things and have fun. And, me now. And like, I am totally like all about like, when's the next party? Like, let's have fun. As a child, if you could only imagine how like filled up I felt, and not being able to experience those things that I felt like my soul really needed. And so now as an adult, finally, to have the means to provide that for my children, I just feel like it really means a lot. So,
Oh, I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Stephanie. I didn't expect to go
yeah.
that deep on that question, but this is what we do. We never know
Yeah.
where things are going to go. Okay, so you want to add places to your list. So what is some place that you have always wanted to go?
Oh my gosh. Definitely. I mean, like Europe. I think Europe is like really huge just for the means of like the history. Like, I just feel like my mind would be absolutely blown to see like all of the history over in Europe. And then Bali is like really, really huge on my list. Like, Bali, I love places that are hot and tropical and like pool and ocean and all of that. I've done the Hawaii thing, but I want to go a little deeper. So Bali is like, I would say like my absolute number one.
Oh, I like that. I really want to ride an elephant, but like not at a circus or
Yes.
like at in a
Yeah.
zoo. So I think you get to do that in Bali. I was telling my husband that actually, like, I don't even know, but might have been telling my friends that like the other day. I was like, I really want to go
Yeah.
there because I want to ride an elephant.
Let's go, girl. Me and you,
We'll
we're
make it
heading to
happen.
Bali.
I love it. Oh my gosh, we'd have so much fun.
Yes.
Okay, so what like going back to when you were a kid, what was one of your favorite things to do as a kid?
Oh, oh my gosh. I would say like I really liked art when I was a kid. Like, I really loved to draw and paint, and I was always very naturally talented in things that are artistic, which it's interesting actually, since you like bring that up, is that as I've gotten older, this is a side of me that has absolutely been pushed to the wayside. And I've been talking to my husband a lot lately about how it's like, what? I feel like I really need to tap back into my creative side, because I feel like it's like, I'm not fully tapping into myself. I'm sure you have a lot of insight around that and how important like creativity is. So yeah, as a kid, that was actually really, really huge. And I actually wanted to be a florist when I was a kid, because I love the creativity of like putting the flowers together at the different heights and all the colors and things like that. So
Oh,
yeah.
I that is so fun. And this is why I love to ask this question, because we often, like when we were a kid, we do the things that filled us up the most and then we stop
Mhm.
doing them. Right?
Uh-huh.
Like, we stop doing them because all of a sudden there's responsibilities and then there's this and then there's that. And so, I mean, for me, I would tell you to explore that a little bit more. And it's funny that you bring up the word creativity, because this has actually been coming up a lot lately. And for anybody who's listening, that's like, I'm not creative. This is my favorite thing, is people are like, I'm not creative. I used to say this to myself as well, because I based my creativity on how well I could draw a person or color
Uh-huh.
something or those things. And like, creativity doesn't always come through in that way. I was talking to a client of mine actually, and the way that she provides experiences for her kids and has found ways to do um, certain things in like her business, like that is creativity as well. And but sometimes we do like I love to color. And that's like a way for me to remind myself sometimes that I am creative. But the way that we go about life a lot of times is where our creativity comes through. It's not just artistic
Yes,
creativity.
absolutely. Yeah. Do you do those little coloring books with like the teeny tiny little like areas? You know what ones I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. I do those. But then sometimes, like when we went to buy our RV, there was like some kid one sitting there and they were
Just
definitely
regular whole coloring book.
regular. Yeah. And I just like sat down while we were waiting and was coloring at the tiny little table sitting on the floor. And everybody kept walking by and they're like, okay. And I was just like,
I love
hey, I'm
that.
just doing my thing here. So I
I
don't really
love that.
discriminate. Like,
Yeah.
I remember the first time I taught, the first time I said to my husband, like, oh, I'm going to buy, because when I put on Press Pause last year, they all got coloring books. And I was like, I'm going to get everybody adult coloring books. And he gave me this look and he's like, what? And I was like, not that kind of an adult coloring book. Like, my goodness.
Oh my
So
God, that is so good. That is so
there's,
good. But you do bring up a really good point though, that like creativity isn't always artistic. I think for me, because that is a side of me that I have had, like I do want to bring back more of that artistic side. But then again, I also that I have been able to start tapping back into that with what I do, right? With like clothes and style. And I mean, that's a form of creativity as well that's been really great to like bring back into my life. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. And you have taught me that. So, okay, let's dive in because here's the thing. Stephanie is literally the woman that I can thank for teaching me how to confidently dress myself at the age of 31 years old. So prior to, and that was last year for anybody's that's listening. So I, and this, I love that you brought that up because I never thought of how I dressed as like a way to like I know we say this like it's kind of how we express ourselves, but I was wearing so many masks prior that I was dressing in the way that I thought everybody else wanted to dress. Like you try to like find the trend, right? And then
Right.
it's like but you really taught me that how to become really creative with the clothes that I have in my closet. And that I remember my husband, so Stephanie sends out, and we'll talk about these at the end, but she sends out these style blueprints that are like the best things ever. You get like having a stylist every morning. She sends them to you and then you just pick whatever is in your closet that like closely resembles that. I'm actually, look, I've got my shirt on today from it.
I love
So
it.
and I remember coming upstairs and my husband's like, how does she know what's in your closet? It's like, well, she doesn't know exactly what's in my closet, but what you did do is you empower people to get creative with what they do have in their closet. And I have felt I have really started to understand that because I remember last year when we were in Cabo, I have never felt so in alignment. And I think a lot of that was like where I was, but it was also like what I got to wear and what I love. And like I actually love dresses and I love skirts and I love crop tops and I like it's just funny
Yeah.
how it had makes such an impact. So again, like I met Stephanie a year ago, about a year ago in a mastermind, which it's been brought to my attention that people don't know what a mastermind is. Which neither did I until a year ago. So if you don't know what that is, I'm just going to tell you. It's essentially getting a bunch of people together who are in like a similar realm so that you can connect, like collaborate, learn, and grow together. Like I don't know,
Mhm.
that's the best way I can describe it. So
Yeah, that's
um,
good.
that's the best thing I've got. But I was instantly attracted to Stephanie's energy. Like she quite literally has this wow factor about her. And she's just a super, super amazing stylist. So I really want to know, like you said that you've always been artistic. Um, But have you always know, I mean, you thought you were going to be you wanted to be a florist. I feel like it's all in kind of the same realm, but like,
Yeah.
have you always known this was the direction that you were going to take in life? Tell us more about that.
Yeah. Absolutely not. Like, absolutely not. Um, gosh, I've been on like a very like massive confidence journey, like from the time I was a child until through adulthood. And when I was a kid, like I kind of alluded to earlier about like the no vacations and things like that. We didn't have a ton of money. And also my mom, who, we naturally, if you're lucky enough to have a mom around, you as a female, you naturally kind of look to your motherly figure, right? For advice in style or makeup or beauty or, whatever. And my mom didn't do any of it. Like she's major tomboy, never wore makeup, never styled her hair. So everything I definitely didn't get anything from her. Luckily, I had a great older sister that was like kind of interested in beauty and things like that. And she introduced like 17 magazine to our little like partnership, me and my sister. And so we would read these like 17 magazines all the time. And that was kind of like what got me. I noticed that I was like interested, right, in this kind of realm through those magazines. But because we never had the resources and I didn't have the environment to really develop that sense of self. I didn't really think much of it until adulthood, and all of a sudden I started, showing up. I was in network marketing, and I would go to these events, and everybody kind of looked to me as like the style girl, like because I would love getting my special outfits together for these like 3-day events. And everybody was always commenting on my outfits and how cute I looked. And would always ask me for advice. And then naturally, as time went on, I just was like, you know what? I'm going to take this and run with it. And so a year ago, I finally like fully dove in.
Wow. Okay. So I would have never thought that a year ago, this is where things like, because like you are so like, you're just really good at what you do. And I think it's funny because like throughout your life, you probably there probably were those signs that like this is something that was good for you. But I think it's cool to mention that like, what were people coming to you for? And this is something that I think that humans miss is people could probably, for anybody who's listening, there are people who probably come to you for a certain thing all the time. And like, if you were to just take a second and like look at that, you might be like, oh, wow, that's probably what your superpower is or where you can help people if you're ever looking to help people. But I think
Yeah.
that it's just really funny to see that people were coming to you. So, yeah.
That is such a good point, Stacey, because it is so true. I do absolutely agree with you and believe that so many of us take for granted the things that come natural for us. They come natural for us for a reason, but it might be easy for you, but somebody over here is like struggling to connect the dots in something that is just like you don't even think twice about. And so it is very important to like tap into that side of yourself because I think like Chris Harder taught me that of like what you feel like comes as second nature, someone else really is looking for help and guidance with. And I think that can be like a guiding light for so many of us that aren't really sure like what our purpose is, and that can kind of help get us going in the right direction.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at our relationship, like I literally needed you. And it's funny because I have this conversation with people quite often is by by us taking those things for granted and not helping people with the things that do come innately so easy to us, we're doing the world a disservice. Like you truly make the world a brighter place. And I would I'm going to ask you this. Do you see how you use some of the same skills that you use now in style and to empower women to be their most confident self and everything? Like, do you see how you were able, like, were you using it, using those same skills in the past, but in a different
Yeah.
way?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And I just hadn't really like fully, it hadn't really clicked for me in the past that that's really what I was doing. Because again, it's like second nature. It's natural. It's like what it's just coming out of your mouth, like you don't even really think twice about it. But now, like with, self development and like honing my skill and all of that, yeah, it's absolutely true for sure.
Okay, so you mentioned that growing up, you were like things were not that easy, right? So let's talk about like how do you think that actually shaped your journey? Because we can't connect the dots looking forward, but time a lot of times gives us perspective on where we were and kind of like how that helped shape you into who you are. So, do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I started doing style at first, I was just thinking, oh, I like want to help women create outfits and like feel more empowered, through the clothes that they wear and be able to express themselves. But as I have like dove in deeper into this journey and worked with more and more clients, what I really find like a core issue with where we are as women is all around like our extreme lack of confidence in so many areas of our lives, and that has like hit me like really really hard, and I almost feel like that's the reason that I was sent on this like style journey, is for this like deeper level of what I do. Because when I was younger, and which I was saying earlier about how like I've been on like a really massive confidence journey, I have always, from the time I can remember, I've always felt small. I've always felt like I didn't have a voice. I always have felt like I am not worthy, like I'm not important. And there's so many factors that have gone into that. And obviously, those are all stories that I chose to create as a child, right? I'm very aware of that. We need to have awareness around the fact that we create those stories ourselves, right? But much of that came from the fact that my mom had extremely low confidence. And that was, I believe, one of the reasons why she didn't put on makeup. She didn't dress nice, is because she didn't want the attention. And also, I was around a lot of abuse, like my like physical, emotional, sexual abuse, like was rampant in my family. And I saw the women in my life, my mom with my stepdad, and then also my real dad with my stepmom, who I spent some time with. There was a lot of making the women feel small, making them feel powerless, making them feel not beautiful, like they didn't deserve to have attention or to stand out or anything. They just floated through life essentially. And that really impacted me, and that made me feel small. So as time has gone on, I have luckily been around like the right people to help try to develop that in myself, and to know that that wasn't right. What I lived through, that's not how it's supposed to be, that's not how it has to be. But it's up to me to make that choice to not be that way. And so now I like to think of myself almost kind of as like a guiding light of what could be for women, and how it is important that we stand up and we take up space as women. It's so important, and it's okay to have people look at us and admire us like in a respectable way, obviously. And that's one of those things that I believe can help to be accomplished through clothes. It's not the whole picture, but it is a very important piece of the pie, in my opinion.
Wow. So many things that we could definitely take from that. And I think it's important to like, yes, we at some point in our life, we get to have the awareness that we can that we get to choose the stories that we have subscribed to, and we get to unsubscribe from different ones. I just think it's an important note to make that like the stories that you have from when you were a child, a lot of, or like even a teen, a lot of those stories are placed on us, right? So, like, you didn't even have developmentally, you didn't even have the ability to say, I don't really want that one. You can keep it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's important because as you go through life, you were able to look back and say, you know what, I can see now that that was a story and I'm not going to subscribe to that story anymore because I deserve to feel worthy and have a voice and speak and take up space and all of those things. What do you think? Do you feel like there was like a turning, like what led you to realize that you have this choice to decide what stories you're going to keep and which ones you're going to get rid of?
Yeah. Gosh, you know what? I mean, it's a journey, right? It's a very long journey to like try to figure these things out, right? And I feel like I'm still very far from it, but I've obviously made a lot of strides, which is awesome. I think what started the journey, honestly, was our older son, Jaden, because I found out I was pregnant with him at 19. And the story that I told myself around that was that holy shit, everybody that never thought I was going to be anything, which I don't even know if that's true, but that was in my head at the time, is that, oh my God, nobody thinks I'm going to amount to anything. And everybody that always said that about me is right. I have totally ruined my life. Like I totally fucked up. Like here I am having a child as a child. And what happened was, though, is we obviously had our son, and it was almost like I was forced to take a look at myself and be like, I want this child to have a decent life. At the time, I just wanted a decent life for my kid, and now I want an amazing life for him. But I'm like, I just want this child to like not be raised in a situation that I was raised in, and to honestly, like, I not be fucked up. Like that was like my big goal, and that really made me look deeper inside of myself and be like, dude, how do we get away from that? And I had to really start recognizing, yeah, those stories that I had told myself, and how if I want to create a better life for him and for myself, that I needed to break away from those like mental struggles that I had always had my whole life.
Yeah, it's man. I'm trying to like I'm the thing there. And here's what I think is really powerful about that is you mentioned something earlier that you said that the like low confidence is something that has run in your family. And I think there's a lot of women who could probably look at their family and say that same thing. And I think it's important to recognize that this can be an ancestral thing, right? So that low confidence can actually become something that is passed down from generation to generation. And if you see different things within your family that a lot of the family members possess this same quality, it is not that you are not bound to that. It is simply a eye opener for you to say, hold on a second, I'm going to choose to do things different. And what I think is so powerful about that is that when you do that, you not only heal yourself and create a different life for your children, and like everybody who's, to come, but you also heal your ancestors in some way. That is the way that energy works. That is the way that like there's no time and space. So you choosing to do the work is hard, right? It's
Yeah.
hard, but it's often bigger than us. And I just think it's really cool to see that, because you'll probably notice that we always think that our parents are like, like they're supposed to teach us, but like we're here to teach them just as much. Kind of like your son came into this world and like he taught you some things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point, Stacey. And how like I believe that like we choose our parents, right? It's because that's the journey that our soul needs to go on. And I needed that experience as a child, and to have the parents that I have, and same with my son, needed to like choose me because it like generates this whole like journey that we're meant to be on. And I also want to say that like I also, I do feel like people maybe look at me on social media and literally think that like I have no no insecurities, like just confident all the time. And it is important, I think, to share this story of like, yo, like I still have like my battles, and all of us do. And it's just important to have an awareness and make the choice to fight through those, because what's on the other side is more important and more powerful than sitting in the past, really.
Yeah, could not agree with you. Could not agree with you more. And I think that so for anybody who's listening and they are like really resonating with this, because I mean, we're real on this podcast. I go through that probably multiple times a day. Like I will never forget there was a time in my um on this journey where like before I did anything, I had to remind myself, like, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you. You don't have to be like, because, and like, I still do that sometimes. I'm like, because my tendency is to go back to trying to prove things to people. Right. So, um, how do you now, like, cause this is something that I think so many women struggle with is they may know that they are holding themselves back and they sit there and they're like, I know that I should move forward, even though I'm not feeling super confident. What do they do? How do you get through that?
Oh my gosh. Actually, I'm going to share with you something that a guest of mine on my podcast just said the other day, Heather McConaughey. And she was talking about how confidence is competent. And that's exactly where confidence comes from. And it had me even thinking about confidence a little bit differently, about how if you don't feel confident in a certain area of your life, get more competent, like gain more knowledge, like figure out like what is step one to get you going in the right direction. And I think that that's an important thing to be aware. We have to take responsibility for where we're at, right? I mean, and that's a huge part of it. Is like in my past, I'm just going to speak from experience. I have sat in low confidence, like kind of like a poor me, like, oh man, I just don't feel good about myself, wah, wah, wah. But in reality, as soon as I took that responsibility of like, yo, I don't have to feel that way. And the only person that's going to get me out of this is me. It's not my spouse. It's not, whoever else we like throw these responsibilities onto. It's like, if I don't feel confident, it's about making a choice and taking action. And that action requires becoming more competent in whatever area of our life we're not feeling confident in. And so I thought that that was really powerful when she said that. And so I'm glad I could like pass that off to you guys.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. And because another thing is confidence a lot of times comes from clarity, right? So
Mhm.
as much as it's being competent in something, it's being clear on other things. And I think I see this with so many women is that when you like the one thing that they neglect getting really competent about is themselves, right?
Mm.
And so this is like this huge missing link of whether it doesn't matter. It's about building the life that in business or whatever it is that you want is you have got to get competent in the one thing that is going to make you unique and stand out and be able to come and shine your light and like make your voice and be seen is you have to get to know yourself. And I think from your journey, you can see that you took the time to get to know, like, at my core, who is Stephanie? And that's what I admire so much about you is that's who you show up as. Do you have doubts? Absolutely. But you still choose to show up as who you are authentically because you know who she is. I think
Mhm.
most women can't do that because they don't know who the fuck they are.
Yes. And I have so been there. Like I just really want to reiterate that is like you can make the choice any day to start the journey, but you have to go into it knowing this isn't going to happen overnight. And the biggest thing to help you to figure that out is you have to try things, you have to taste things, you have to wear certain things, like actually make the effort and be okay with that didn't really work out. Or, you have to like go after certain jobs and just say yes because you're like curious about it, and like maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't, but you have to like taste all these different things to really start that journey of getting to that place. And yeah, I feel like, again, I have made a lot of strides in my own life, and I don't want to take away from that, but I'm still like, I feel like I'm not going to truly know who I am until I'm on my deathbed. I think that's just kind of like the long time journey of how that goes, right? And so much of confidence has to do with your circle and who you are around. I feel like that seems so cliche to say that. But in the times that I have spent time with people that have not nourished me, they've brought me down in one way or another, but I felt this like pressure, maybe because they were family or, whatever the case may be, to hang around them. It has truly thrown me off course every single time. And the unfortunate thing is that as women, I feel like a lot of oftentimes we, especially, will have spouses that are kind of one of the main culprits in making that even more challenging for us to try to find ourselves. But it is important to be aware of that, and just be willing to take the action and like tap in and take it one baby step at a time to get going in the right direction.
Yeah, and you said this about the spouse, and so I want to just like highlight something that I personally see a lot too, and also with the when you brought up the abuse, and I think some people like people have felt. Not everybody has gone through abuse, but like I think in some aspect you've had somebody not necessarily treat you the way that you would want to be treated in different things. But a mentor I was listening to one time once said that when people don't understand, they will try to push you down. So this is nothing against, this is not like some like against men type of thing. But what I will say is that in our culture and in a lot like just from a lot of things, it's been a man's world. And again, I am not against men. I love men. But the reality is that sometimes when women start to step up, they what their initial instinct is to try to push you back down because they don't quite understand you. And they don't like you're kind of freaking them out a little bit. And so they're going to naturally try to kind of like hold you back. Like, I don't know what that thing is about the bucket, right? Of like the crabs in the bucket and one tries to get out and they all pull it back down.
Yeah.
But that is because they're fearful. And I always talk about the fact that like, don't go like if you are in a relationship, make sure that when you're talking to the other person and you are trying to help them navigate something, that you are doing it from a place of love and not a place of fear. Because that fear will stop. You're not only going to stop yourself from growing, you're going to stop that other person from growing. And because you're afraid they're going to outgrow you or be somebody different or whatever that is. But like the reality is in life, we should probably have a rebirth every like multiple times throughout our life. Like we aren't meant to be the exact same person forever. And like Stephanie said, be getting yourself around people who allow you to grow because they love you that much is
Mhm.
really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and going back to you explaining what masterminds are, I mean, masterminds are extremely powerful is because everybody's like on the same mission. You know what I mean? Like they're all craving, it doesn't have to be a mastermind, but be around people that if you're trying to like lift yourself up, you have to get around other people that are all craving to lift themselves up as well. And that energy, it's like it's an exchange, right? And it has a profound, I mean, I'm sure everyone listening has heard this, like you are the sum of the five people you spend the most time with, right? But the people you're around that can have a profound impact on your growth, either up or down. It works both directions, right?
Yeah. And if you don't like where you're at, take a look around. Right. And I always, it's actually funny. If you go back, I did an episode called Don't Keep Your Circle Too Small. Because as much as I agree with I do agree that we are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with. But I think often we surround ourselves by people that have one perspective, that have, they think like we do. So we want to
Mhm.
keep them around. And this is where sometimes getting into a different room and like, I don't know about you, Steph. I think this was your second one, but walking into that mastermind last week with 50 people that I did not know was one of the scariest moments of my entire life, I think. But it changed my life too, because I was willing to get in a different room with people who maybe didn't think exactly the way that I do, who were going to force me to grow and level up. And um like, be willing to be a beginner. No matter how far along you are on like your journey, there is always something to learn. And what do they say? If you're the smartest person in the room, get in a different room, because
Mhm.
like we like, our ego likes to feel that way. Like, ooh, I've got it. Like I've
Yeah.
got it. I know all the things. I'm going to be the leader. But like, if you really want to continue to evolve and grow in your life, like you have got to get into rooms that make you feel uncomfortable and are going to
Yes.
force you to do
Yes.
that.
Yeah, well, and it's like one of the biggest, like one of the most, like, I feel like important, um, characteristics that we can own is an open mind, quite honestly, because it's like the saying, open minds, open doors, is because if you are only hanging around people just because they think the same way as you, or you're only allowing yourself to be open to conversations that are like in your that have your same opinion, then you're not going to be able to grow past where you're at. I think that's definitely an important reality.
Oh, yes. I love that. I've never heard that. Open minds, open doors, because um we are surrounded by a lot of closed, and I love it because one of the things that I actually think I have this written down somewhere, like you can't be open-minded until somebody says something that you don't agree with. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
work that way. Like
Yes.
I have a lot of people who are like, "Oh, I'm open-minded." And I'm like, yeah, as long as it fits in the constructs of the boxes that you've created, then
Yes.
you are open to just about anything. But as soon as it steps outside of that, you don't want to hear it or you don't want to know any more about it. And that is the definition for anybody listening of being closed minded.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so funny that you say that, because that's something that it sounds crazy to relate it to, but that's something that I experience sometimes with like the one-on-one style coaching that I do is, I make it a requirement, hey, going into this, you have to be open-minded. That's the point of you hiring me, right? Is that you are wanting to like try new things. Do you promise to be open-minded? And then when it really comes down to it, I do my thing. And sometimes they're like, "Oh my God, I wouldn't wear that." It's like, well, yeah, that's the point. You wouldn't wear that's why you hired me. Like that's why we're doing this. So yeah, it just check in with yourself, right? And like you might say you're open minded, but there's really like there's more to it than just that, right?
Yeah, just be real and be okay. Like you can laugh at yourself if you're like, okay, thought I was way more open-minded than I am. Like giggle it off and do something different. Like I love and what you just said about like experimenting and being willing to taste different things and try different things on, quite literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
But because it is such an important, you're never going to get to know, like the women that I work with, a lot of times they're like, I don't even know what I like. I don't know who I am. I don't know like what I like to do for fun. Like I know like when I'm in it, whether I'm having fun or not, but I wouldn't be able to like go and say, what do I need? What do I enjoy? And so, like Stephanie just said, it's so important to, like, my advice is always like, well, we need to experiment with new things. Because if you go to the same restaurant every single time, like you might be missing out on the best meal of your life right next door because you're just not willing to get out of your routine.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So
So
I love
so
that you
much.
said that.
Yeah, and well, it's interesting though, because I feel like this is something I hear often, especially in like business and things, is that get into action. Like you have to take the action to actually experiment, right? And to know. But what I seem to find is that the vast majority of us aren't willing to actually take the action to get to that place. So then it's like, okay, well, what is it that keeps us from actually taking the action to go a deeper level, right? And so often, I'm sure Sissy, you have some ideas of what some of it is, but so often we're afraid that we're gonna like look stupid if we do something wrong, or like, the way other people perceive us, we're just not gonna look, cool, or that we have it together or whatever. We're afraid of failing, things like that. So those are things to definitely check into as well, I believe.
Yeah, and you're spot on. It's usually going to be tied back to like your inability to take action is going to be tied back to some sort of limiting belief, some sort of fear, some sort of conditioning, like past conditioning some story that you have written. And so that's why I believe it's so important to get to know yourself really well, because then you don't get to give yourself those excuses. Because the other side of that is that there's people out there taking a lot of action. They're taking a lot of action and they're still not getting anywhere. They're still not getting where they want to be because I'm not actually a big fan of messy action. I like aligned action. I think messy action can make us feel just what it says, very messy.
Mhm.
Um, but again, that whole confidence comes from clarity, and we have to have clarity around like what we're doing in order to take aligned action. Because I see it all the time. Women are taking action, but your goal may be to feel better about um how you look, or you want to get like upgrade your style, and you're out there like focusing on if you're going to eat right, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to do that. Like
Yeah.
you avoid the actual thing by doing these quote unquote productive other things that you think you need to be doing. So just again, like dig into it a
Mhm.
little bit. Like, where is that avoidance coming from? What are you afraid of? Because if we can figure out our fear it's a gateway to understand where there's work to be done. And that's not a bad thing. That's an amazing thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is so, so true. I love what you said about aligned action. I think that that's so, so important because we can sometimes, well, I do feel like it is important to be like, yo, take some action. Like, you know what I mean? If you're really feeling frozen, like just get moving a little bit. But you can also, on the flip side of that, be truly spinning your wheels, like getting nowhere, like burning the like leftover gas in the tank, right? And that's not going to get us anywhere either. So it is awareness, right? I feel like that's been like my word of like this year. I feel like it's like awareness around like just where being real with yourself around, okay, where am I falling short? Where can I, take more action? Where can I, where am I needing to adjust who my circle is? All of those things. It's all around awareness, really.
Mm, love that. Okay, Stephanie. So I always love to end the interview here. Like, there's been so much that we have pulled out of this, but with one simple question so- is what is one lesson you feel like you are in the middle of learning?
Uh, One lesson I feel like I'm in the middle of learning. Oh gosh, there have been so many lessons. So many lessons. Um, I feel like I am in the middle of learning that you can't like everything is a journey, right? And you cannot expect to dive into a certain profession or business, or maybe it is style, where you can't dive into something and expect that it's immediately going to click. Like it's going to naturally be um an experience, really, right? And you have to really absorb all of the lessons along the way and know and have like the utmost faith that there is going to be a point where all of the dots are going to perfectly align, but it may not happen like immediately and as quickly as you think it will. But you have to like enjoy the journey along the way. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Oh, I think that's so good. Yes. So these types of things are not Amazon Prime.
Right.
As much as we wish
As much
they
as we
were.
love Amazon Prime, but yeah.
We sure do. Now it's like we have one and it's like an hour delivery. I'm like, oh God, our world just got that much worse. As far as our
Yeah, right.
patience goes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Stephanie, for being here. I want everybody to be able to connect with you. So, how can people connect with you? Is there anything that you want to tell them, like the listeners, about? Because I know that they're going to want more of you in their life. So, feel free to share.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So Instagram, my inbox is always open. I'd love to hear from you if you have questions or just want to give feedback on the episode, whatever the case may be. My handle is I am underscore Stephanie Gilstrap. And then, of course, I want to tell you guys about what Stacy mentioned earlier with the outfit of the day. Um, so it's a text message program. It's really cool because 5 days a week I send out a text message with an outfit blueprint, which essentially has an image of the outfit of the day that you get to recreate using whatever is in your closet. And what's really cool about blueprints is that, it's just broad enough to where you get to like kind of make it match your own lifestyle if you want to keep it casual, if you want to dress it up. So it might say like, Stacy, you might be able to kind of mention, but it's like you might say like black bottom. So do you want to wear shorts that day? Do you want to wear a black skirt, black pants, whatever it might be for you? And then like a floral top, like grab any top that has flowers on it. That works, that kind of thing. But what it does is it essentially really makes the process of getting dressed super easy. You don't have to like stress about like what matches together, any of that. So I do all the work for you through these blueprints. And then, of course, there's a great community of women as well through our Facebook group that you can connect with. So,
Yes, and I'm not even kidding. This is like one of the greatest gifts that has ever come into my life, and that is not me just selling you on this. Like I mean this with all of my heart. I love these blueprints. It's forced me out of the boxes that I thought that I was in. It's taught me how to understand style. It has allowed me to use items in my closet that I have like barely ever used before. Or like you might have those articles that you're like, I literally just have no idea what to do with that. Like might be on the verge of throwing it out. And Stephanie will throw it into a blueprint and you're like, oh my gosh, like I get it. This totally makes sense. So definitely it's so worth every single penny that, and it like it's a very inexpensive investment in for you to be able to upgrade your style literally. So take a look at that, check it out, definitely get on that train. I love to take photos and like post them on Instagram too, so that people can see how great these blueprints are because they quite literally have changed my life. So
yeah.
thank
Oh, that's so
you.
amazing. Of course. Yeah. DailyStyleUpgrade.com. I don't think I said that.
Perfect. And I will have all of that linked in the show notes. So
Awesome.
thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. And I just appreciate you more than you know.
Yes. Thank you for having me, Stacy. This was great.
Of course. Okay. After finishing that interview with Stephanie, the thing that really stuck out to me the most was that her last lesson around everything is a journey, and that we just can't expect to dive into something and for everything to immediately click. And I wanted to touch on this a little more because I want to talk about mastery. And we think that mastery is about being perfect, knowing all the answers, or doing things right all the time. And that is not what mastery is about, because there is no destination. Okay. Because as humans, we're meant to grow and evolve, and there's always going to be something else to learn. So, mastery is about the process and it's about progress. Mastery comes from putting in the work. Okay. So, mastery is about knowing that you are going to encounter obstacles, but there is always a solution and a way through it. So, and every time you make it through an obstacle, what do you feel? You're going to feel more confident in your ability to make it through obstacles. Think about something for a second that you're really good at. Okay. How did you get that way? You practiced, right? Think about a toddler for a second. They are some of the most like confident people out there because they don't have any reason to doubt themselves yet. They have to learn how to crawl, and so they do. And when they're learning how to walk, they fall and they get right back up. They keep trying until they master it, right? It's not about if you are going to fail because you will. And whatever it is that you're going after in your life right now, you are going to fail at certain aspects of it. Mastery and confidence comes from how quickly you're willing to get back up and try again. How can we channel our inner toddler to get back up and just do it again? Right? You might not always at the end of something feel as if you were successful, let's just say, or you succeeded in that particular thing. But you're always going to learn something and you're always going to develop a new skill that's going to help you in the future, or maybe you're just going to pass it along to somebody so that they don't have to make the same mistakes that you did. Right? So the cool thing about mastery is that it's contagious. Again, once you master something, you all of a sudden have this confidence to go out and try to master something else, which I think is pretty freaking cool. The thing is, like, this only happens if you're willing to show up, right? We have to be willing to show up on social media or show up in front of our friends and our family or show up to the event that we were scared to go to. If you don't step in the door, you don't get the opportunity and you don't get to grow and you don't get to master shit. You have to be willing to show up, right? So you can't just think about it. And that's where most people get caught up. They have all of these ideas, but they aren't willing to take the inspired action or the aligned action that's actually going to bring it to fruition. Clarity sometimes comes from trial and error. You don't have to wait to be perfect or you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. So have fun with it, right? I one time heard this story about if you were on a path and you were on a trail and you had this decision and you had to go right or you had to go left, like you had to make a choice on what trail you were going to follow. And you decided that you were going to go right. So you turn right. And as you're walking down this path, you see the most beautiful views you've ever seen in your entire life. You see animals that you've never seen. And you're just looking around and seeing all of these things. And then all of a sudden, there's this boulder in front of you, and you literally cannot go any further that way without falling off the cliff. So, what is your only choice? You have to turn around and you have to go back. And then you get back to that and you decide to turn left because that's the only other place. You can either go backwards or you can go left. So, you go left. And you don't look at that time that you spent on the trail going to the right. You don't look at that as a waste of time because you experience things that you would have never have experienced if you only would have gone left. So now you get to go left and you get to see what it is that you're gonna find on that trail. But I think it's important to realize that like it doesn't have to be so right and wrong. That we can absolutely make choices to go in a direction, and not everything, like just because it maybe wasn't the perfect one doesn't mean that you didn't get something out of that opportunity, right? Or that situation. So when something I want you to think about doing is I want to give you an action step, because whenever you're about to level up, self-doubt is going to move in like a wrecking ball because it wants to keep you safe and it wants to keep you comfortable. You need to know that when self-doubt creeps in, it only creeps in when you're about to do something amazing. Okay. And then you have two choices in that moment. You can stay where you are and you can settle for a mediocre life, or you can remind yourself that your mission is bigger than your fear and choose to show up anyway. Step into the person that you need to be for your life or your business to soar long before you feel like you're ready. Like ask yourself, what would she do? You can't base the decisions you make today on the person you are right now, or you will end up stuck in the same cycle you have always been in. The decisions you made yesterday got you to where you are today, and the decisions that you make today will shape your future. So the reality is that what's going to get in your way when it comes to making this decision, when I ask people what is stopping them from moving forward on the life that they really, really want, they always respond with me. Right? So if you have a lot of internal blocks, like it doesn't matter how hard you try, you're going to end up feeling stuck in that same cycle and wondering why it keeps happening. So I definitely have, if you haven't grabbed the freebie yet, absolutely do that. You can also hop on my text message community, which is super fun. You can text 248-206-3431. I send out journaling prompts a few times a week so that you can start to understand and move through those internal blocks to really get you slingshotted, whatever that is, into the life that you want to be living. So I just want you to take that with you and think about that this week, is if we could just start to look at mastery a little bit different, because it's not about the being perfect or knowing everything. It's simply about the process, and it's about the progress that we go through. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Evolve Beyond Limits podcast. I am more grateful for you than you know. And this month, for every review that we get, we are donating $5 to the Reality's Chance Animal Sanctuary. They rescue Mustangs, and it's one of the most beautiful places I have ever been. The energy there is amazing. It's here in Michigan. So if you feel inclined, please write a review, subscribe to the podcast. We'll be donating to that cause, and share this episode with anybody you think might need to hear it. So again, thank you. And until our next episode, keep evolving.